Mr. Brannen.
Thank you, Chair. Two observations. The first, I spoke to a farmer on Saturday from West Durham who has beef and sheep. And on the issue of sort of sheep in New Zealand and possible future imports, he pointed out, and this wasn't mentioned in the discussion so far, an animal welfare issue, which in New Zealand, much larger flocks, and the lambs are born on the hill. The farmer doesn't bring them down. And as a result, there's a higher mortality rate amongst sheep and newborn lambs. And obviously some of those animals die in not very pleasant circumstances, painful deaths, because there's no farmer there to assist in the birth. So there's a comparison or a lack of comparison there in relation to animal welfare issues. So his view was that sort of British lamb, therefore you could argue European lamb, is born at a much higher standard than maybe New Zealand lamb. That's an issue to think about. Animal welfare wasn't mentioned this morning. And then secondly, on the Brexit issue, clearly trade deals are by their very nature complicated. Brexit is complicated. Trade deals in the context of Brexit make things doubly complicated. And one of the issues which is likely to arise is the British government is going to be pretty desperate to sign up to some new trade deals outside of the European Union. Australia and New Zealand are obvious people to strike deals with. We speak the same language, we are related, etc. And the reality is New Zealand and Australia are going to be in very strong position to drive a hard bargain in relation to what they get from the UK. And as I say, the UK will be desperate to sign up. So there's a distinct possibility that cheap beef and cheap lamb will be coming into the United Kingdom. Now, you can track that from an EU point of view if it's been sold as meat, but as soon as it moves into the food industry and becomes processed, it then becomes very difficult to track. And therefore you're going to have a problem on the EU side is, are you going to have a split tariff system where processed beef and processed lamb products from the UK, if it's indigenous to the UK, come in at one tariff, and a different tariff if it's cheap beef coming via New Zealand and Australia through the UK into the EU market. The complexity of that is immense, and the tracking of it is extremely difficult. So it's something to bear in mind. But I'm afraid it's going to be difficult for UK farmers. There will be those of us who argue against the import of cheap beef from New Zealand and Australia, but there's many customers in the UK who can only afford to buy the cheapest, and there's a large number of people who don't care.